Windows XP tune-up video number 6. We're going to learn about services that you can turn off in Windows XP, which will speed up your computer. To access the interface, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Start button, select the Run icon, and in the box here we're going to type services.msc and either choose Enter or OK. Let me go ahead and make this larger. And I'm going to move this over so we can see the full name. Okay, this can look a little different depending upon what version of Windows XP you're using. I'm using the home version. Pro would have more options in here listed, and if you need to read what one of these entries are, you can highlight the entry, and on the left it'll tell you a little bit about the service. Now I want to note that I'm going to go through all of the services. Typically what I would recommend is doing a few at a time, restarting your computer and testing your programs and watching for error messages to pop up. That way, if you need to, you can come back in here and re-enable those services to regain access to your programs that aren't functioning. I would typically do a few. Every once in a while you'll hear me to say this would be a good reboot point. And then you can either come back to this video and rewatch and fast forward, or if you'd rather, you can take the time to go ahead and write these down one at a time, and that way you can later do them a few at a time. Okay, we're going to look through here. Clipbook services. To access these, you can go ahead and just double click the item, and that will bring up the properties page of the service. And of course mine is already disabled. If yours is started, you'll need to press the Stop Service button and then open the drop down menu and select Disabled and then select OK. Let me see, I'm going to look through here. Yes, this distributed link tracking client, we'll want to go ahead and turn this item off. First select Stop the Service, and then we're going to change the startup type to Disabled and select OK. And we're going to move to the next one. DNS client. This is for an Active Directory domain. If you are connected to an Active Directory domain, you can leave this enabled, but seeing how most people are not connected to that type of domain, they don't use this service. So I'm going to go ahead and stop and change the startup type to Disabled and select OK. I'm going to move to the Error Reporting Service, open the Properties page, select Stop, then change your startup type to Disabled and select OK. Fast user switching. This is a utility used where you can run multiple users. It'll keep a user logged into the computer while another logs on. I'm going to go ahead and disable this function. It's already stopped and set to manual. I'm going to select Disabled and select OK. Okay, help and support. You can leave this disabled. I don't typically use this service, so I'm going to go ahead and stop, change the startup type to disabled, and select OK. Okay, give me just a moment while I look through these. Now, of course, in one of the other videos, we disabled the indexing service. We can go ahead and go in here and change, since it's already stopped, change the startup type to disabled and select OK. Now, here would be a good point to go ahead and restart your computer. If you do find something that is not functioning properly, or you've lost a service that you appear to use, you can go ahead and go through the list of the ones we've currently done and re-enable those a few at a time until you can re-access the program you're trying to access. I'm going to go ahead and move on with the disabling of the services. Okay, the IPsec service, you really don't need that for security policies. Go ahead and open this, select stop, and then change the startup type to disabled. Okay, and the next one we're going to move down to is Messenger. Now, this is not MSN Messenger, this is Windows Messenger. You would want to turn this off. Lots of spyware and malware can use this service to create pop-ups on your computer. If you do use Windows Messenger, you would want to leave this enabled. Okay, so since I don't use that program, we'll go ahead and disable Messenger. It's currently stopped. We'll select disabled and select OK. Let's see here. Okay, MS Software Shadow Copy Provider. This is a service. It's currently set to manual, which means that if the service is needed, it'll go ahead and start up. But since I do not need this and wouldn't typically use this, I'm going to go ahead and disable this item. Select OK. Let me see here. Net logon. We can go ahead and, if the service is started, go ahead and stop and select it under the startup type as disabled and select OK. Net meeting remote desktop sharing. Now, if you use net meeting, you could go ahead and leave this set to manual. I do not use net meeting, so I'm going to disable this item. Once again, if the service is started, go ahead and select stop and then change the startup type to disabled and select OK. Okay, network DDE. We're going to go ahead and disable this item. If the service is running, select stop and then select disabled, as it's currently disabled on mine. The same goes for network DDE DSDM. Open the item. If the service is started, select stop and change the startup type to disabled and select OK. Alright, of course I need my virus protection. NTLM security support driver. We can go ahead and disable this item. If the service is running, select stop and change the startup type to disabled and select OK. window down just a bit. Performance logs and alerts. We can go ahead and, of course, the service is stopped on mine and set to manual. I'm going to go ahead and disable this item. If the service is running on yours, once again, select stop and disabled. Do a couple more here and then have you restart. Portable media serial number service. We can go ahead and disable this. If the service is running, select stop. Under the startup type, select disabled and choose OK. QoS RSVP. Okay, we can disable this entry. This is quality of service stuff for programs that work over the internet or a network. We don't currently need this, so if the service is running, select stop and change the startup type to disabled. Now would be a good time to go ahead and restart your computer, check your software, make sure everything you use is functional. Then once you do that, you can re-invoke the services menu by choosing start, run, and typing in the services.msc and selecting OK or enter. Be sure to write down that the last place you left off at the QoS RSVP, which if you're writing down the services we're disabling, you'll have that entry available. Okay, Remote Desktop Help Session Manager. This we can go ahead and disable. Of course, it's currently stopped on mine and set to manual. On yours, the service will probably be running, so go ahead and select stop and change the startup type to disabled. Okay, Remote Procedure Call Locator. We can go ahead and disable this item. Once again, stop the service, then select disabled under startup type. Removable storage. If you use removable storage, such as USB drives or such, or USB or FireWire CD or DVD drives, the safest thing to do for this entry is select the startup type as manual. That way the service can run if it's needed, but it will not run during startup. So you can go ahead and stop the service, change the startup type to manual, and select OK. I did forget to mention for the remote procedure call, I apologize for this. This as well should be set to manual just in case you do need that service, and select OK. Routing and remote access. Okay, this is another entry that you would not need. Stop the service and select the startup type as disabled and select OK. Secondary logon. This is another entry we will not need, so we're going to go ahead and stop the service. Change the startup type to disabled and select OK. Do remember, if at any time I'm going too quickly, you can pause the video or rewind to review what we last went over. Security Accounts Manager. We don't need this. We can go ahead and says it started on mine. We're going to go ahead and change the startup type to disabled and apply. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and change this one to manual, just in case, and select OK. Smart card. This is one. These are typically government type services for smart cards. We can go ahead and stop the service and select disabled. SSDP discovery service. Okay. This is another entry that you will not need typically, so you can go ahead and test this by stopping it, changing the entry to disabled, and selecting OK. Of course, all of my semantic entries I will need. System event notification. This service sometimes is handy to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the service and change the startup type to manual. And that way, if the entry still needs to run, it can run, but it will not run during startup. TCP/IP NetBIOS helper. Go ahead and have a look at this entry. And NetBIOS is an older protocol, so I'm going to go ahead and I don't use it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the service and change the startup type to disabled. Telephony. This one I'm going to leave to manual, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the service. And here, I'm glad this came up. This will notify you if the service requires another service to run. It will have to shut down both of the services. Go ahead and tell it yes. Wait for the other services to close. Then in your startup type, select manual and OK. Terminal services. This is another entry. Unless you actually use terminal services on a network, you will not need. And I'm going to change this entry. Of course, you can review here. It shows started. You can go here and see the other entries. It's saying that fast user switching is showing. So let's go ahead and write down terminal services where we stopped off. Go back up to fast user switching. Of course, it shows it's disabled here. It may require a restart before I'm able to disable that. So I'm going to go ahead and change the terminal services startup type to disabled and select OK. Whenever we restart, that service will not start back up. Okay, now would be a good time to go ahead and reboot. Remember where you left off, which once again, if you're writing down the entries as we're going through one by one, you'll know exactly where we left off. Once again, to re-access the services interface, you'll need to go to Start, Run, and type in the services.msc and either select OK or hit Enter. Uninterruptible power supply. Okay. Most people don't use uninterruptible power supplies. They're rather expensive. If you have one, you will know that you have one. I'm going to go ahead and, if the service is running, stop and change the startup type to disabled. Volume shadow copy. Okay, here's another entry. Once again, this is currently not running on my computer, but I am going to go ahead and change the startup type to disabled. If you need to stop the service first, go ahead and then choose disabled and OK. Web client. Okay. Here you can read a description. It enables Windows-based programs to create, access, and modify Internet-based files. If the service is stopped, these functions will not be available. If you do a lot of web-based authoring, I would leave this service enabled. I do use that, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the service and change the startup type to manual, so that it does not run during startup and will only be used whenever I am authoring web pages. Okay. Once again, on the volume shadow copy, thinking about it now, rather than disabled, I am going to switch this to manual just in case the entry is needed, and then I'm going to select OK. Let's go ahead and move back on. Windows image acquisition. This is not typically used and is pretty much using memory. The program's not needed currently, but it may at some point, so I'm going to stop the service and once again go ahead and select the startup type to manual and select OK. Windows time. Okay, this is a synchronization service. If you turn this off, it's not going to disable time on your computer. If you do have your computer synchronized with a network time server, you may need this entry. I'm going to go ahead and disable it, as I do not have my computer synchronized. So we'll stop the entry, change the startup type to disabled, and select OK. Wireless zero configuration. Okay, this entry is once again for wireless network cards. I don't currently have one on this machine, so I can stop this service and set it to disabled. If you do have a notebook you're using this on, go ahead and set the entry, or if you have a desktop machine that has a wireless card in it, go ahead and set it to manual, but I will be setting it to disabled. Okay, WMI Performance. This service is probably running on your computer. It's not needed during startup, but may be needed at some point, so you can go ahead and stop the service and change the startup type to manual and select OK. That is the end of the services. Go ahead and restart your computer once again. If you need to review any of the information, this video is available. You can pause, rewind at any time to review what we've gone over, but the best tool you'll have is the list of the entries we have disabled or set to manual, that if you need to reverse those, you can do them a few at a time as recommended at the beginning of the video. To do a few at the time, restart your computer, check your programs and all the services you use, and if you run into a problem, you can go ahead and re-enable those a few at a time until that service comes back, and then you can go ahead and disable the ones that aren't causing the issue.